My name is Sarah Metzger. Hi, everyone. It's really good to see you. And I am one of the assistant directors here at the Penn State Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. And I am joining you all today to talk about car shopping, which um, I am not a super car nerd. I happen to know some things about cars. It's like that weird skill of mine. Like when I go to trivia, I'm a good team member for that reason. But I do get excited about car shopping because like cars and like my own experience with car shopping, like cars are freedom, cars are transportation for work, like cars are just these tools that are so useful to us in life and fun and exciting and essential for many of us. That this is an important topic to consider. And it's not a small purchase to buy a car. So it's really important to know the value of a car, how to approach making that decision to make the purchase and to not feel buyer's remorse after the fact. So that's what I'm going to dive into today. Before we do so, though, I want to note a couple of quick things, just the housekeeping items that we do at the beginning of every session. This webinar is being recorded, and we record these sessions intentionally so that we can upload the recording to our YouTube page by the end of the week. So if for some reason you need to step out early, you can do so, and rest assured that you are going to be able to come back to this webinar and pick up exactly where you left off, wherever that may have been. So we've got you covered in that sense. And then we also want to remind you that if you are here participating from SMEAL's Ethical Leadership Challenge, there's no QR code for you to get credit for participation. You just need to hang in on the call and we will send your attendance information over to the coordinators of the SELC program. So you will be good to go in that sense. Finally, I also want to make note that we have access to the chat feature today. So I just opened up the chat. I haven't sent anything through yet, but it is there. If you have questions you want to share, you can send them directly to me, or if you want to make comments to the entire group, you have the everyone feature that you can send to. And there's also a Q&A. So if you would rather send a question anonymously this afternoon, you are welcome to do so. I will be looking at both spaces. So let's test and make sure that the webinar chat is working. Those of you who've joined in, can you pop over to the chat and just, I don't know, in one or two words, unless you want to say more, tell me how spring break went for you, because we're coming back. This is the first Tuesday after spring break. Students, hopefully you got away, you rested, recuperated, ate a lot of yogurt. Great. I love that for you. Okay. Oh, good. Still need more break. I feel that. I feel that. We're almost there, though. It's amazing to think how quickly the first half of this semester has flown by. I feel like I'm going to blink and it will be May graduation before we know it. So hang in there, gang. Oh, I love this. Okay, the chat is working. I feel really good about that. Okay. Awesome. So we are going to get started then. I'm going to keep you in the chat, so don't go anywhere just yet. Stay there because I'm going to have you I'm going to have you do a little bit more participation here. As much as I can start off with something that's kind of lighthearted, fun, related to the content, I try to. So today, and if you remember from my insurance presentation a couple of weeks ago, we played a little game, a game of, oh gosh, I don't even remember, like, oops, life happens, something like that. For today, I'm going to test your knowledge on car value. I'm going to test your knowledge on car value. So go to the chat. There's no polls for this. I just want you to plug in your best guess. I'm going to bring up a couple of different cars. I'm going to let you know if they're new, if they're used, and what year they were made. And I want you to try to guess what the base value, the base price of the car is. Okay. So not the car with all the bells and whistles added in, not that premium level, but what's the base value? Right? Talking car shopping today. So let's just start thinking about what cars cost. First up, a 2025 new Honda CRV. What do you think the manufacturer's suggested retail price is of this vehicle? Brand new, 2025. Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys are good. You guys are good. All right. Here it is. 31,495. So a lot of you, your car shopping senses, they're good. Those spidey senses are top notch. All right, let's try it again. How about a brand new 2025 Chevy Tahoe? What do you think that manufacturer's suggested retail price is? Some of you might have this car right now and go, I know exactly how much this one costs. All right, $60,955. So a lot of you really close with that one. You guys are, I'm about to turn the mic over to somebody else. You guys are good here. All right. How about a used 2016 Jeep Wrangler? We're going to look for that KBB value. That's the Kelley Blue Book value. So today, how much is this used 2016 Jeep Wrangler worth? Okay. Well, you guys are pretty good still. Pretty good. Some of you might be happily surprised to see it's less than what you thought. 13,133. That's that Kelley Blue Book value currently for a 2016 used Jeep Wrangler. One more for you. A used 2010 Jaguar XF. What do you think the Kelley Blue Book value of this vehicle is? I think this one surprised me. I don't know if that gives you any indication. I don't own a luxury vehicle, so I think this is why it surprised me. Oh, dang, you guys are good. Okay. KBB value, $6,296, which for this particular vehicle bought new back in 2010 was over $50,000 for this sedan at the time. Interesting to see what happens to car value and depreciation over 16 years' time. But you guys, your senses are pretty good. I'm impressed. I really am. Having a good sense of a car's value, that's an important responsibility. We can't always trust our gut. Your guts are pretty good. I will say that here. But that's one piece of like the full responsibility of being an informed car shopper. We have to know the value of a car and many other things, which we'll dive into here today. So kudos to you guys on playing that game there with me. I think you did a terrific job. We're going to take it a step further. We're not just going to trust our guts here and what we think a car is worth. We are going to start considering all sorts of information about car shopping so that by the time you reach a dealership's lot, you are organized, you feel prepared, you feel in control and confident, so that whether or not you are buying a new or used car or you are leasing a new vehicle, like you know what you need and how much it's worth, you know what is feasible for your budget, and you get in there and you like make a deal for yourself that you leave feeling really good about. You drive a car off the lot and you're not feeling any buyer's remorse. Color remorse, I can't help you with that. I sure did feel color remorse after I bought my silver car and then later on saw that there was like this beautiful red orange color that was available. Not at the time when I bought my car, but I sure did have some color envy. I can't help with that, but I am going to try to make sure that the information I share with you today is not going to that will prevent you from feeling buyer's remorse after the fact when you get to this point of buying your next vehicle, or for some of you who I know have got undergrads in attendance, you might be gearing up to make your first car purchase ever. So here's what we're going to address: creating your car budget, researching your options, shopping for a car loan, what to know about that should you need one. Some of you might have cash up front to pay in full. You won't need to worry about a car loan, but many of us will need to borrow money to buy a car. So what do we need to know? How do we find the deals? So you are shopping. There are ways to get better prices on a car for yourself. What do you need to look for? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about planning for protection, car insurance a little bit, and then what you need to know in regards to your consumer rights as a car shopper, or somebody who may be taking out a line of credit, a car loan to finance and purchase the vehicle. There are certain consumer protections and laws in place that you're going to want to be familiar with. So we'll address that as well. If you got any questions, again, shoot them through to the chat. I got my eye open there. I'm gonna get the Q&A open as well, so I don't miss you on that end. And I'm going to send a couple of links as best I can through the chat here this afternoon as well. So stay with me on that. You'll have some good information coming that way as well. Let's start with creating your car budget. It is super duper important that you figure out the true and total costs associated with owning and operating a vehicle, a specific vehicle, and then also looking at your budget and ensuring that, okay, based on these true and total costs that I determined will exist for this vehicle of choice that I'm interested in buying or leasing, I can afford it or I can't afford it. We have dream cars, and then we have cars that are realistic for our budget. And in some cases, you may have to make some compromises on the kind of car you buy, the kind of features included in that car, but regardless, like the goal is to get something that is going to work with your budget. At the office here, we talk all about financial well-being. We talk about security and freedom of choice in the present moment and in the future. And we would never advise somebody to buy a car that is outside of their monthly affordability range, because that just opens up a potential for a whole can of worms and a whole bunch of issues. Maybe not in the short term, right? Might not be able to feel it immediately, but when you take out a car loan and you're paying for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years time, what you didn't anticipate to be a problem could certainly show up down the road. And we want to think about the what ifs. So what is affordable now and what's going to be affordable in the future should any of the XYZ scenarios happen? I lose a job, somebody gets sick in the family, right? We can't predict the future, but we want to be mindful as best we can. Okay, so let's talk on this. And yes, question in the chat. This PowerPoint will be shared via our YouTube recording. So in fact, I know I've got one of my ambassadors in on the chat. Allison, I hope you're listening. Otherwise, I'll come back to this. Allison, if you can get our YouTube page link into the general chat, I would really appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll come back to you, Robert, and I'm gonna get that link so that you can take a look at this PowerPoint after the fact. Perfect. Thanks, Allison. Okay. So let's talk numbers here. It's a rule of thumb. It's not a hard and fast rule, but aim for your monthly payment. So if you do need to take out a loan to buy a car, that you're making monthly payments back on that loan. Hopefully those payments are not more than 10% of your monthly income. So for example, if you're making $2,000 monthly, 10% of that is going to be $200. You're trying to cap, if you can, your monthly car payments to 10% of your monthly net income. Okay. Factoring in, of course, that cost to operate the vehicle. Thanks so much, Allison. That cost to operate the vehicle is going to include some of the things that you see in the picture. We'll do a little engagement here as well. Let's come back to the chat. What is factoring into the total cost to operate a vehicle? So based on the picture and based on your own experience, some of you are car owners currently, what do we got to pay for? That's my question to you. What do we got to pay for? Let's go to the chat and try to assemble a comprehensive list here. Because it's not just buying the car. It's like a pet. We have to take care of it after, once we own it, right? Yes, there we go. Gas, inspection, repairs, insurance, oil changes, good, accidents. Yep. Even if we have insurance, we sometimes still are on the hook for costs related to those accidents. Inspections, absolutely. Tires, got to get replaced. They wear down over time. Parking permits, yes, especially those of you who are up here in State College or are planning to move to a major city where parking is scarce. You're going to be paying for parking in many cases. Brakes, in case your brakes fail or your brake pads or rotors need to be replaced. If you're like me, you've gotten a parking ticket before because you parked your car somewhere you weren't supposed to. Once upon a time, the city of Chicago got a lot of money out of me in college because I was not as careful as I should have been about where I parked my car at night. Unfortunately, parking was very scarce there too. Good. Oh, and then tolls. Thanks, Joshua. Yes, tolls. That's what this is my little toll signal here. I do a lot of highway driving when I'm back in Chicago, and there are a lot of tolls in Chicagoland. Even just being on turnpikes, you have to pay, right? So if you're doing a lot of vacationing or road trips, like you got to factor that in. It's going to add up in cost. Yeah. And those prices are always going up for the tolls. Don't I know it? Don't I know it? Okay. So you guys, you have an idea of what these costs, where they come from. How much do they actually add up to is always the question. Oh yeah, car washes as well, if that matters to you. And that mattered to me for a long time with my very first car, I do recall. Here's what I suggest for you all is you're creating your car budget and you're trying to figure out what's affordable. You have to look at your everyday obligations. You got to know what your bills are. You got to know what your income is. You have to know how much money you have in your budget to go to total car payments and operation costs. If you're trying to figure out what car is going to fit within your budget, I encourage you to get onto these true cost calculators that exist online. There's a QR code on my screen that if you have two devices you're working with, scan the QR code. Otherwise, I'm going to bring this up. It's a Kelley Blue Book total car cost calculator. I'm sure I'm totally butchering what the official title of that is, but I'm going to go ahead. I think it's a cost to own calculator is what they call it, which is a much smoother way of explaining it than what I just tried to do. I'm going to go ahead and plug that website in for you. That's going to allow you to do some comparisons between different vehicles that you're interested in. Certainly, there's a difference between new and used vehicles, hybrid versus traditional gas vehicles, different technologies, size of vehicles, all the bells and whistles included in them. You know, I've got family members who are like, they won't get a sunroof because that's just one more thing in a car that could break and have to be, you know, costly to repair. I get it, right? You got to kind of evaluate this for yourself. But I want to plug in this tool for you as a starting point of like, it's not going to tell you how much you can afford, but it's going to help you figure out if the cars you're interested work within your available budget. How much can you afford each month? And if you're at the like early stages of car budgeting and planning to buy a car for yourself, start saving for a down payment if you haven't already. This is going to help to lower your monthly loan payment. So if you are financing a car, you have a down payment, you're going to put cash up front, and that cash up front is going to help lower the amount you need to finance, the amount that you need in a loan, and lower your overall monthly loan payment moving forward. So as much as you can save that cold hard cash, do so. Aim for 10 to 20%. And if you're somebody who, you know, budgeting's not your favorite thing to do and you're not cracking open your budget every Sunday morning with a cup of coffee and seeing how you did from the week before, try to build that habit. Get a spreadsheet, get an app, do a journal system, do what you need to do to hold yourself accountable for your savings goal around a down payment and making sure that you stay on track with your everyday spending so that once you do have the car, you have a car loan, you are certain that you can meet that financial obligation and pay the monthly loan note every single month without missing it. Okay. Here's where I'll plug for students, for alumni. You are welcome to make an appointment to meet with anybody from my team, any of our financial counselors or peer mentors to talk budgeting to make sure that you've got this foundational step complete. I spend so much time talking about budgeting because it's really, you know, without it, we're just taking a huge risk in buying a car that we maybe can or cannot afford. And that's not a space you want to be in when you're on the hook as a borrower and you have an obligation to repay and your financial reputation's at stake if you can't, right? So let's not mess around here. Let's do our due diligence and make sure that we know we can afford a car, we know what's within our budget, and then we find a car to fit that budget as well as our other commuter needs or lifestyle needs or whatever it may be, right? But start with the budget first. From there, start to research your options on vehicles, right? Now, if you were using that Kelley Blue Book total cost of ownership calculator, you're starting to see what kind of cars are going to fit within your budget. Is it a new car, or is a used car going to be more affordable and better for your budget? What do you think about warranties? Is it important to you that you get a new car that has all the new warranties, haven't been used up? You're going to let that carry you through 10 years, 5 years, whatever the warranties are. Sometimes with used cars, rather, you buy the car, but the warranties have already expired on it. If the car is older than 10 years and it had a 10-year, powertrain warranty on it, that warranty is not going to carry over to you as the new owner of the used vehicle. Okay, well, what does that matter to you, right? It may matter a lot or it may matter very little. That's your call. That's for you to investigate, but I want to put that language out there for you. Safety features. That's was a big part of my decision making when I bought my car in how old am I? 2018. I wanted a car that would keep me safe if I was in a car accident and anybody else that I was transporting. I have a dog. I feel much better about transporting my dog in my vehicle in a safe way because I've got some safety features built in where my car will stop itself or put me back on the lane or do all these kind of crazy things that it can do, right? Car happened to be new to me at the time, but my husband bought a used vehicle and he was able to get a report detailing the vehicle history. That's important to do, especially if you're buying, primarily if you're buying used, because you want to know what accidents has that car been and where is it traveled to, what maintenance has been performed on it, has the maintenance been regular, things like that, because that's going to, in many cases impact the value of the car and then also, your assurance that the car is in good shape and you're making a good purchase for yourself and that this car is going to be reliable. Hopefully, you never know for sure, but hopefully, right? Technology, taxes and fees, insurance rate, we'll talk a little more about that. Environmental impact, all of these things are influenced by whether the car is new or used. I can't tell you what you need, but I can give you this food for thought as you evaluate what is important to you. I will say for vehicles that are electric, and there are many more electric vehicles on the road nowadays than there were even when I, bought my first car back in 2018. There are tax credits that exist out there. It might be important to you to have a clean energy vehicle or a clean vehicle. And it might also financially make sense for you to get a clean vehicle because you have the potential to get a tax credit of up to $7,500. Maybe. That's, again, food for thought. Let me link that to you guys as well. So got an IRS webpage here. For those of you who are considering electric vehicles, there's information about the tax credits available if you were to buy an electric vehicle. And then if you're trying to figure out whether or not your current vehicle or a future vehicle you'd like to buy qualifies for these tax credits, you can go to fueleconomy.gov to get some more information on that. I'm not an expert, but I wanted to plug in those resources for you to consider as you decide new or used, and then what type of vehicle, what make, what model, what year, etc. You'll also need to consider whether buying or leasing a car is a better fit for you. And there's a difference, not only in terms of ownership, like if you buy a car, that car, if you pay cash, is yours up front, or if you finance that car, get a loan for it, once you pay off that loan, that car is yours in full. Or lease, which is kind of like leasing an apartment. When you lease a car, you're renting the car for a period of time. Typically speaking, if you buy a car, you're going to have more upfront costs. You're going to have a higher down payment. You'll probably have a higher monthly payment as well. But when you lease a car, you are more often than not going to have a lower monthly payment. You might need little to no money down at the time that you lease that car. You have to be able to look at your current financial status and some of your personal financial goals. For example, when I was first out of undergrad, I decided to lease my first car. The car I have now is one that I bought in 2018, but my actual first car out of college is a car that I leased, and that monthly payment to lease the car was $199 a month. And that was way more affordable for me, a brand new school teacher who was making $36,000 a year at her first job. My current car that I fortunately just paid off, that was a monthly payment of $404 per month. So I essentially doubled my car payment when I went from leasing a car to buying a car. And that was only going to be made possible if my budget, my income, my financial circumstances allowed for it. So it's important to consider each and figure out, okay, well, what money wise, financially is going to be a better choice. And then also to lifestyle wise, when you lease a car, you often have maintenance included for a period of time that you lease the car. If you like getting a new car pretty regularly, leasing a car for 3 years is going to put you on track to, keep leasing, to keep getting that next new car and have all the next new and exciting things that cars are offering, that these manufacturers are building into the vehicles nowadays, all the new technologies. I can't say what's going to be right for you, but I want you to consider each and figure out what you determine to be most appropriate given the bullet points that you see on the screen here. I'll also note with leases that customization is really not going to be possible. You like those window tints, want to put some cool decals on, or do oh gosh, I say I know cars and I'm over here like you want to get some body work done. My uncle's really big into this. He's got different rims, everything's blacked out. Like he's had butterfly doors on a car he had a couple of years ago. Like he's really big into that. Can't do it when you lease a vehicle. There's also mileage limits. You can only drive so much with the vehicle before you'll get charged for going over the mileage limit. Resale options are different when you lease a vehicle, things like that. So I'm going to plug it into your brain to like, okay, I got to go investigate, is buying or leasing a car going to be more appropriate for me? And it really just depends. I'm an example of somebody who's done both in life. And right now I've bought a car, I've paid it off, and now it's mine. And I'm fully responsible for it. There's nobody I can give it back to say thank you, but I'd like a new one now. That's not the space I'm in anymore. And that, excuse me. And then finally, in researching your options, please do research on market value. Figure out what the current car prices are that are fair. Not only, what the car manufacturer is saying, like, here's the MSRP, here's our suggested retail price, but like actually what are people in Du Bois or State College or New York City or Chicago paying for these vehicles? Because it's going to vary depending on the car, the dealership, the location, other market conditions. I mean, certainly some of you are going to sit in the space here today and go, well, what about these tariffs I keep hearing about? Could tariffs increase the cost of cars in the future? Potentially, yes. I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to go deep in on that. But there are going to be ebbs and flows that will influence what cars are selling for, and I want you to be familiar with those. When COVID hit and we had a huge supply chain disruption back in 2020, cars became very expensive because there were so few of them. People needed them. Used car prices shot up because those cars were already here and assembled and people needed to get their hands on them. So if you bought a used car in 2020, 2021, 22, you knew like, okay, I'm paying more for a used car than I would normally. And that's simply because of current market conditions. So be mindful of that. And also know that when we talk about MSRP versus invoice price is what the car dealer pays for the vehicle. MSRP is what they're going to try to sell it for in order to make a profit. And I mean, they got to make a profit. It's a business, right? Your goal is to pay as little as possible, but you have to know these numbers in order to navigate the negotiation. Your out the door price, should you ask for it, is what everything is going to cost once you factor in the price of the vehicle, as well as the sales tax, title and registration fees, dealer fees, if there are any add-ons, extended warranties, service contracts, extra features from the dealer. Like that's going to give you the total out the door price, which is helpful to know should you ask for it. So investigate all of that, ask these questions, do as much research as you can before you get to the dealership and start to have these conversations. Because speaking from experience, it's not always easy to multitask and try to, get online and try to Google these questions and then also listen to what you're hearing from the sales agent as you're at the dealership and reconcile and work through the negotiation all simultaneously. It's a lot. All right. So do the legwork in advance. Be also mindful that if you're a cash only buyer, that may benefit you in getting a better price for the car, or you're not having to worry at least about financing costs. So there are going to be certain fees you're not having to pay. You're not paying loan origination fees. You're not going to be paying on a loan each month. You're not going to have an interest rate attached to that loan. So you're not paying extra for the privilege of borrowing money. And that's going to factor into the overall car price, of course. If you are somebody who needs to take out a loan in order to pay for this car, whatever the cost is, please be mindful that you may need a co-signer. So students who are in the room with me here today, many of you have had a co-signer for your apartments off campus, a parent, family member, somebody who has established credit history and proof of on-time payments and responsible borrowing. You might need to get a cosigner to join on with you if you're trying to buy a car and need a car loan. Okay, so conversations, this research doesn't just necessarily happen with you. You might actually have to sit down with a family member or somebody who's going to hop in on this car loan with you, because they're going to want to know what your plans are, what you're trying to borrow, what kind of car you're going to buy, what your financial situation is, and are you going to be able to afford those payments? Because if not, the cosigner's on the hook for them. Okay. And then we'll talk about looking for deals as well when trying to get the best car price. I got a whole slide detailed on it, so we'll get to that. But I'm going to pause for a second because I know that's a lot of information. Let me check in here. We're going to breeze through the next couple of slides, but this is a pretty content heavy one. If you've got questions, let me know. Oh, I think we got a Q&A here. It's hiding. Okay, so a question that came through, what is a principal payment versus a regular monthly payment? I think what you're asking is, what is the principal and then what am I just paying each month? When you lease, I'm sorry, let me get my words right. When you get a loan to buy a car, you are going to have the principal amount that you borrow. So if the car is $25,000, you're buying, you're getting a loan for $25,000. The principal is $25,000. Because you are borrowing, and that's going to come at a privileged cost, that's the interest, which we'll talk more about the APR, you're going to pay extra in your monthly payment back. So that payment will cover some of the principal, but as well as some of the interest costs that go to the lender. So that's how they're making money. They're profiting off of you in that way. When you first start paying back on a car loan, this is installment credit. You're going to make the same monthly payment each month, but what that money goes to is going to change as the years or the months roll by. So for example, when you start making monthly payments back on your car loan, the bulk of that monthly payment, if it's $400, 300 or more of that dollar or that amount is going to go, actually, that's not correct. I'm not going to give those numbers, but more of your early payments are going to go towards interest and less to principal. As you go through and you make payments over months and years, more of that monthly payment is going to go to the principal. This is a way for lenders to ensure they get some money back from you all. It's called amortization. Big word, amortization. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in the chat after this so you all can do a Google search on it. We have a spreadsheet on our website that is a whole amortization schedule where you can plug in, here's how much the car is, here's how much I'm getting for a loan, here's what my interest rate is. And what it's going to do is it's going to show you over 4, 5, 6, however many years you're repaying on that loan, how much of your monthly payment goes towards the principal, which is the actual amount that you borrowed, and then how much is going to interest, which is that extra money you pay for the privilege of borrowing. You pay that to the lender. I hope that makes sense. Without a visual, It can be a little like, what? But stay with me on that. Go check out our website. Allison, if you could plug in our website as well so folks can find that amortization schedule, I think that'd be really helpful. Thanks for checking in with that question. I think that's a good one. Let's continue on then. Speaking more about loans. In order to get a loan and get a loan with a great term, great rates, great fine print, you want to make sure that you are well positioned to do so. So review your credit history and your credit score first. You can do that with the 3 bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, by going to annualcreditreport.com, which I'm gonna bring this up for you. I tell this to all of my students. It's the most suspect looking website out there, but I can assure you it's authorized by federal law, and it is a totally credible place to pull your credit history. Make sure that all of your on-time payments are there. So you look desirable to the lender. The lender sees you and goes, okay, Sarah's been making on-time payments with her her rent, if that's being reported, or her credit card. If I had student loans, they'd show up there, right? Like that all looks really good to the lender who's reviewing your credit report when you apply for a loan. That's going to help increase your chances of being approved. Okay. Please also evaluate your debt load. If you carry a lot of debt, credit card, student loan debt, this may, trying to obtain a loan for a car, first of all, does your budget allow you to make this purchase? But then um, depending on the terms of the loan or the rate of the loan, it may make it not affordable to actually buy the car. You may be paying a lot each month, more than you anticipated, simply because maybe your credit history is not favorable and you already have a lot of debt that you are trying to manage repayment of. Okay. We're going to use APR to compare loan options. So this is a percent and it represents the total cost of borrowing money. So when you're looking at loans, you'll see APR, that annual percentage rate. It's a little different than interest rates because it factors in fees and like the total cost of borrowing money over the course of a year. But it is still represented as a percent. You want to be familiar with that. And then be cautious of long-term loans. So if you are getting a loan, anything that's really greater than 6 years could you have the potential to be making payments on a car well into the future, year 7, and actually like the value of the car has depreciated. So we call that negative equity or being upside down on a loan. When you are making payments on a car, or you have an outstanding car loan that is actually greater than what the value of the car is. That's that negative equity, and that's not necessarily a space you want to be in. It's also important to be mindful that as cars age, their maintenance costs typically increase, and to have a long car loan where you're still making pretty significant monthly payments combined with increased maintenance costs can be hard to manage sometimes with your personal budget. So I want you to be thinking about how those long-term loans, 6, 7, 8 years, might impact you in the future. Okay. Consider getting pre-approved for a car loan. This can be used as a bargaining chip when you're at the dealership. Oops, apologies. What exactly does that mean? Pre-approval versus maybe pre-qualification. You've heard of this. Pre-qualification is a quick estimate, like a soft credit check, an idea of how much you would be able to afford in terms of buying a vehicle and what your rates are going to potentially be. It's not a guarantee though. So pre-qualification, if you hear about it, it's something to be mindful of if you're early in the shopping process. But if you're somebody who's like ready to go to the dealership, you want to have some negotiating power, pre-approval is going to be the way to go. It's an actual hard credit check. Lenders are looking at your credit history. They're evaluating your credit worthiness and providing you a conditional loan based on that financial situation. Okay, they're gonna, after you submit an application, review all of your info, and you're gonna submit this application to a bank, a credit union, an online lender, anybody who's willing to loan you money to buy a car, right, that you feel is trustworthy. You're gonna submit that application. They're going to review your credit history. And if you're approved, you're going to get a loan offer with terms, including the maximum amount that you'd be loaned, your interest rate, that APR, and any repayment information. So what the term would be, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever, right? If you're ready to make a purchase, it's helpful to have that pre-approval in hand when you get into the dealership because it provides some budget clarity. Okay, so it defines your spending limits. You already know I'm pre-approved for a $35,000 loan. I'm not going to buy a car for more than $35,000. So you got budget clarity. You know that's within your means, right? You're not going to overextend yourself. You've got the negotiating power because dealerships do prefer to work with folks who already have financing secured. So if you are getting a loan from a bank, credit union, or online lender, dealers are going to be happy to work with you, and it gives you the opportunity then to negotiate with confidence and avoid being pressured into dealership financing, for example. So, like dealers can also help you buy a car; they can provide a loan directly to you. But like, if that's not what you need, you don't have to worry about being pressured into that because you've already got a pre-approval from like your local bank or local credit union, whatever it might be. Okay. It's also worth noting that pre-approval is helpful because it helps you to avoid dealer markups. So, um, for example, if you're being offered financing from a dealership, they're saying, well, hey, you can get a loan directly with us. You can get a loan directly with Honda Financial, which is what I had done when I bought my first car. I took out my loan through American Honda Financial. I forget what it was called. I got my financing directly with the dealership. In some cases, you might want to avoid that because dealers might inflate their interest rates to increase their profits. So you actually might not be getting a better deal if you finance directly with the dealership, and having that pre-approval is like you don't have to feel pressured to finance with the dealership directly. Okay. That also makes the process streamlined. If you're pre-approved and you're walking in to buy a car, a lot of the important paperwork has already been handled. And so, to walk out or drive out with that car off the lot is much easier. So, be mindful of these two options when it comes to moving forward to the dealership, having done all your research and feeling ready to buy. I'm going to come back to a question here. What is considered a large debt load? So we typically talk about the 2010 rule. So we try to say that, and again, not a hard and fast rule, but limit your monthly car payments to 10% of your overall monthly income, and then try to limit the annual car payment, so that total amount of debt, to 20% of your annual income, or like 20% of your total debt load. There's a lot of debt that we carry at one time as Americans or folks who are here in the US: credit cards, student loan, home loans, personal loans, business loans. As much as you can reduce that debt load, try to, or don't take on more unreasonably than you can afford. Okay. There's some debt to income ratios, so you can calculate your debt to income ratio just by adding up how much you pay in monthly bill payments for those debts versus how much you're bringing in as a monthly paycheck, to figure out kind of where your percentage is. I know, like with home buying, for example, they like to see that people's debt to income ratios are lower than 40%. So, like, your monthly debt payments are less than 40% of your monthly income. So, there's not a hard and fast rule for it. But it's something to be mindful of, that if you have a high debt load, that may be the reason you don't get approved for a loan, or you may need to alter your expectations for what type of car you want to buy um, based on your other debt obligations. Okay. So, a question here is, will I get a good rate when you go to apply for a car loan? Maybe. That depends on, hopefully, actually, but that depends on what your current credit history is reporting about you. So here is some information on average APR, so average rates for new cars and used cars at the end of 2024, so the last quarter of 2024, and this comes from Experian, that folks who have, you see super prime, prime, that is good and excellent, like good, great credit above a 660 or 661, they're getting financing terms. They're taking out car loans at lower interest rates, which means they are over the term of their loan, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it may be. They're paying less in interest as compared to somebody who has adverse credit, subprime, deep subprime, these numbers below 600, who are paying more in interest because they're riskier, they're perceived as riskier or less credit-worthy borrowers in the eyes of lenders. So the difference between, looking at this new car list, the difference between buying a car with a 4% interest rate versus a 15% interest rate is hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on where you are at in that period of repayment. It can be a lot of money. So it's important to consider not just like, can your budget, like, can you, right now I've got an income, I feel pretty stable, like it feels like a good time to buy a car, but is your credit history conducive to getting a good rate and actually making that car affordable in the long run for yourself? If you need to pause your car shopping plans and take time to rehabilitate your credit, you absolutely, can and should do so if it's possible for you. That way you are able to lock in a better rate for yourself. I know that's not everybody's, it's not something that everybody can do. But certainly if you are a college student and you're trying to build your credit up and you don't need a car right now, college is a great time to begin improving your credit. We've got a whole separate webinar that deals on that. So I'll just make that plug for you there. There are plenty of websites out there that are going to give you information about current rates in 2025. The rates have come down a little bit, which is good, but certainly um, it's not free to borrow money. So as much as we can get the best rate possible, we should try to. And there's a lot that's in our control in influencing what our rate will be. Okay, so make sure you're paying your bills on time. Keep your credit card balances low. These are the two big things that will help keep your credit score nice and high. Moving on from that, let's talk about deals. All right, let's get the deals. Dealerships are always running deals because they're trying to sell product, right? And we sell product better when we have incentives and deals and clearances and all the kind of stuff that we're attracted to as consumers. Marketing works. So here's what to be mindful of. When we talk rebates offered by automakers, so Ford, Honda, Toyota, these are the manufacturers, the automakers, these are cash discounts that they're going to offer to buyers. And they typically have limits. So how much you can get as a rebate, $2,500, $3,500, and there's going to be buyer requirements many times as well. So for example, when I was getting when I bought my car in 2019, I was wrapping up grad school. So I was able to get or I had just wrapped up grad school. So I was able to get a new college graduate rebate. I don't know, something like $2,500 off the total price of the car. Cool. Better than nothing, right? That's a rebate. Incentives are like a big umbrella term that can include rebates, but I tend to look at them differently. These are complimentary services, potentially free oil changes for 2 years, free tire rotations for a couple of years, whatever it may be. Or it's special financing, promotional APR, maybe 0%, 1%, some sort of APR for well-qualified buyers that's like lower than you'd even get at your hometown bank. Or trade-in bonuses, loyalty bonuses. These are things that dealers can also offer directly to you. What's important to note is that rebates and incentives typically cannot be combined. So if there are lots of exciting offers at the dealership, rebates, new college graduate, military discounts, complimentary services, free oil changes for 2 years. More often than not, you can't get it all, and you're gonna have to pick and choose which one is actually, like, the best deal, the most cost saving, or will help you sleep at night, okay? So you gotta weigh those options, as they're presented to you. And then be mindful of timing. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays are typically good times to buy a car because the dealerships are less busy than they would be on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Um, Sundays, if they're open, though, dealerships, I know in Illinois at least, are not open on Sundays. But go during the quiet times where you can get the full and undivided attention of the sales agents. End of month, quarter, model year, this could be October through December, also good times to buy. There's typically like clearance sales. Dealerships are trying to get rid of old inventory as the new models come out on the lot, August through October. I bought my car on no, December 28th, 2018. So I definitely took advantage of that end of year clearance that they had going on. And holidays too. Black Friday, 4th of July sales, Labor Day, anytime that we see really any retailer offering discounts, dealerships do the same thing. So if you're trying to get a deal, look with some of those dates and times in mind. And then second to the end, let's plan for protection. It's important. We talked about insurance as like a factor of total cost of ownership. It's important to understand that like having car insurance is required in all but one state. New Hampshire, if you were in my insurance presentation, you know that New Hampshire does not require it, though many New Hampshire drivers have it anyways, because there's other rules in place. But make sure you have at least the mandatory coverage. Consider optional coverage too if you are going to be the policyholder of your insurance plan for the car. I'll give you an example. Those of you who were in town on Sunday, you probably experienced that microburst or tornado or whatever it is that rolled through Center County. And at my house, we had 4 of the neighbors' garbage cans. So 4 different garbage cans come flying through our backyard and all pelted my husband's car. So my poor husband's car has a broken headlight, the side mirror blew off, and it looks like somebody just with like hammers hammered all along the side of his car. Whew. He has car insurance, but I'll tell you what, if he didn't have comprehensive coverage in addition to the mandatory minimum coverage required by the state of PA, he wouldn't get that damage coverage or damage covered rather. Comprehensive insurance for a car is going to help reimburse you when non-car items hit you. If a deer hits you, if the trash cans come flying, like my husband is lucky because he's now going to get his car fixed and only has to pay a small deductible to do so. But not everybody has comprehensive coverage and had a tree fall on their car and are in a bad spot right now because of that. I'm not saying you need comprehensive insurance, but I am saying that you need to consider all of the options for coverage with your car insurance to find what will help you sleep at night in terms of your level of risk tolerance. Also consider warranties. Some come with your car, some can be added after the fact that you pay for. And also consider, if you don't already, having an emergency fund that's going to help you to cover some of these unexpected costs that happen when your car breaks down or car accidents, occur. Those garbage cans hit my husband's car and insurance will help to fix it, but he still has to cover the $250 deductible before any of that can happen. And for some people, $250 is a lot of money to have to dole out unexpectedly. So make sure your emergency fund is set. Aim for at least 3 months of minimum living expenses so you can get those bills covered, okay? And then finally, know your rights. There's the Truth in Lending Act of 68. This requires that lenders be really clear and transparent with you about the terms of the loan that they're offering. So they have to tell you what the APR is. They have to tell you that rate. They have to disclose certain information and how they're making their calculations. So we as consumers and car shoppers are protected in that way. be familiar with it. If you're working with a lender or a car dealership who's offering financing and they're being really dodgy about what the APR will be, or they're not willingly disclosing information about the loan that seems odd to you, and do your due diligence, investigate that. Maybe, respect what feels like a red flag popping up for you, as it very well may be. So consider that. And then also be mindful of lemon laws. So, lemon laws in the state of PA cover problems that occur during the first 12 months or 12,000 miles of ownership of a new vehicle. So there's no protection if you are sold a used vehicle and that vehicle does not run as expected. There are no protections for you. You are buying a used car as is. But if you buy a new car, there are what we call lemon laws in the state of PA. Every state has them. And in the state of PA, they cover problems that happen during the first 12 months or 12,000 miles of ownership, assuming the problem substantially impairs the value, use, or safety of the car. So investigate that. Know what protections that law offers to you, and should something go wrong with your new car in the first year or 12,000 miles, you can respond accordingly and get the kind of correction or proper response from the dealership or body shop as directed by the law. I'm gonna just put that in for you there. I That's it. That's a lot, but that's it. That is what I wanted to share with you as you prepare to get out there and car shop. It's a lot of information. I am at 12:57, and frankly, I could have gone way deeper into some of that information. I hardly talked about warranties. I recognize that, simply because there's just so much to cover, and how do we do so in a short amount of time? Use what I've talked about today as your starting point. Some terms, some laws, some considerations, key questions to ask yourself. If you are really serious about car shopping, this is the start of that process for you, and I want you to continue doing your research. As it relates to this information, talking about budgeting, figuring out what's affordable, if you're a student or an alum, please remember you can get connected with us at any time. Students on Starfish, and then alum on our email, finlit@psu.edu. Hopefully I can ask Allison to pop that into the chat as well. And know that we also have other resources related to car shopping online. We've got a self-study module. We've got a financial wellness bookshelf in which some of the books talk about budgeting for cars, among other items that you need to pay for. All of that can be found on our website and the QR code that you see on the screen here. And then there's that QR code for Starfish for those who need it. Okay.